Hi and welcome back to our channel. We have a fascinating topic lined up for you today, VCS audit. If this is your first time hearing about it, there is no need to worry. My colleague Praveen and Ronak and I will be explaining it in details. So let's dive into the discussion without further delay. So I'll hand over to Praveen to give an introduction about what is VCS.
Okay, Vehicle Cybersecurity Audit Scheme, VCS. I think most of us are not that familiar with the topic or might even be hearing for the first time. Of course, when we hear the title, it's very clear. It's about the vehicle cybersecurity. But where is it coming from? What is the intention of it? What it comprises of? So this is something we have to discuss. Um, if most of the audience have not heard of VCS audit, I'm sure they have heard about TSAX, which is related to IT security. Normally, pretty similar to ISO 27001. The label is provided by ENX. So ENX is the organization which is currently providing the TSAX audit scheme. So VCS is also coming from them, but it is more about the vehicle cybersecurity instead of organizational cybersecurity practices. So what is VCS stand for? So it stands for Vehicle Cybersecurity. V is vehicle and CS is cybersecurity. It's a vehicle cybersecurity audit scheme. So it's a common mode of exchange because throughout this discussion I will time and again go back to TSAX because most of us are familiar with TSAX, how TSAX works, what is labeling in TSAX, and how the labeling exchange happens. So VCS is also a common audit and exchange program for normally the companies in the automotive industry, and it will be done based on questionnaire which is called as vehicle cybersecurity audit questionnaire. So this is actually derived from ISO Pass 5112. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the ISO Pass 5112, which is a cybersecurity audit standard in line with ISO SAE 21434, because we all are familiar with ISO SAE 21434, which is an automotive cybersecurity standard. But in order to audit the processes which are required to build the cybersecurity, then ISO Pass 5112 comes into picture. So VCS in a larger scope is nothing entirely different. So it is derived from ISO Pass 5112, which means whatever the essential aspects of 5112, they have been covered as a part of the VCS audit scheme. And as I've already told, the mechanism is pretty similar to TSAX, so which means ENX provides their standard platform where your audit results are presented or audit labels are presented. What kind of a label you have? Is it a temporary or a long-term label, and what is the validity? So anybody can go and check. Whoever has access to this particular portals, they can go and check about the label and the details of this particular scheme. Yeah. So about the VCS audit objectives, maybe I would let Ronak talk a bit about what are the different phases and what are the objectives and so on and so forth.
So, yeah, mainly there are three audit objectives which are divided in uh, like VCS development, VCS production, and VCS operations and maintenance. So, these terms are very similar to the ISO 21434. So, there is development phase, there is operation maintenance phase, and so on in the software development or the product development life cycle. So in the VCS development objective, development related activities are audited. So like concept phase, the product development phase, integration, verification and validation phase. So this all are the phases where the actual product development happens. And this is one of the audit objective. And another one is VCS production. So here the production related phases are audited. So here, like when we talk about the production or placing the keys while producing the issues and so on. So these all things are covered in the production objective. And the third objective is about VCS operations and maintenance. So this is more related to like continuous monitoring part, uh, as mentioned in the ISO 21434. So here, like yeah, monitoring information, what events are reported or some weaknesses are identified, and whatever vulnerabilities are identified and how it is managed and so on. So all these things are audited as part of VCS operations and maintenance. So yeah, these were mainly three objectives of VCS audit. ENX also provide VCS questionnaire, which shall be filled by the company who is wanting like this VCS certificate for the audit. So this questionnaire says different chapters and which are divided like 1 to 9 chapters, which are relevant to like organization related things or the risk management, development related things and so on. So here the first two columns are shown as per those chapters, and in this table what is shown is like which chapter are applicable according to which audit objective is selected. So if development audit objective is selected, then chapters like 1, 2, 3, 4, which are mainly related to the organization, the culture and the risk management things. Chapter 5, development theme, and chapter 8, supply chain. So supply chain is again mostly related to the handling the suppliers, and chapter 9, the continuous cybersecurity activity. So these four chapters from this checklist is applicable when the development objective is selected. And same applies to the other objective, like for the production objective, other than this development part, only the production related, relevant chapter is applicable. And for the operation and maintenance, the operation security related chapter is applicable. Yeah, and yeah, this is a example screenshot of the VCS audit questionnaire. So here there are different columns are added, and also this is divided in different chapters and subchapters, and there are relevant questions are present and that has to be answered according to the relevant project situation, and this has to be filled.
Okay. Then comes the question about what are the different phases of this vehicle cybersecurity audit, right? Now, somebody who has gone through the TSAX audit, they know how that process, occurs or what are the different steps. And again, similar steps are followed also here because once again, it is coming from the same organization, ENX, which is trying to put out a common platform where the information exchange is, seamless. So as a first step, any organization who has to, take part in the VCS audit, they have to register in the ENX portal. But here there is, of course, there is some prerequisites. If at all you want to go through the VCS audit, then you should already be a TSAX member, in the sense you should have a active TSAX label. If you don't have one, then you have to get the TSAX label first. Then only, I mean, as per the current prerequisites, you are eligible to take the VCS audit. Okay, so the registration is first part, and then comes the uh, planning. So planning would definitely mean that any organizations will have a different kind of let's say objectives, like in our earlier videos, as Ronak explained, there are different objectives. If at all you are only doing development, then you can only take that as an objective, which means that is your scope. If at all you are doing only activities related to post production operations, you can also choose it as an objective, or you can also choose multiple topics as an objective. So you have to understand the scope. Of course, just like in TSAX, you should also choose which locations are undergoing this particular audit. That is also something important. And list of VCS protection objects. I mean, what are we trying to protect? What objects we are trying to protect? That is also something we have to specify. Then, of course, we also have to engage with the audit provider, because there are also listed VCS audit provider in the ENX website. Everybody can check out. You can contact multiple of them, get their quotation, try, compare, discuss and finalize. So that would be coming as a part of the planning, which would also mean that in the part of the phase one, CSMS process has to be set up. If at all an organization is already working with respect to, automotive spies, with respect to ISO 21434, then more or less I would assume that they will already have a process in place, which they can actively use in order to, defend an VCS audit. However, it makes sense to, check it through an VCS auditor prior to the audit. And also it is a good idea to do some internal audits, perform internal audits, which you can fix. If there are any findings, you can fix before going for a main audit. So having said that, there is also, of course, comes gap analysis, which means, first of all, an organization which wants to undergo this VCS audit, they have to fill this particular questionnaire. Of course, for each of the points which are mentioned in the questionnaire, which you would have seen in the earlier part of the video, you also have to give certain kind of an evidence. How are you fulfilling, and so on and so forth, which will be an initial level of input for the auditor. Auditor will check through and may also perform some gap analysis, and then of course there are certain findings which we have to be fixed. Um, as a part of the gap analysis, whatever the finding comes, you have to fix it. Then comes a kickoff meeting with the audit provider, where normally the important aspects of the audit has to be confirmed again. Like it could be the scope, it could be the objective, it could be the locations, etc., etc., and also plan the audit process. Like how long will it take? Will it be on site? Will it be remote? Who are the participants? What is the timeline, etc., etc. So these things, also has to be planned. Then comes, a stage where, you are audit ready, which means you have fixed all the findings from your internal audit or a gap analysis. And you've also had a kickoff meeting with the audit provider. Everything is fixed. There comes a time where you feel that, okay, you are now ready for the VCS audit. A date is also scheduled. Then, as a part of the phase two, initial VCS audit takes place. It is very pretty similar to how it is done in the TSEX. I'm not talking from the scope perspective. Of course, TSEX has a different scope and VCS has a different scope, but the way of carrying the audit is pretty much same. Now, as a result of the audit, if there are no findings at all, then you will be granted a label, because in the ENX world we don't call it as certification, rather it is termed as label. Normally an organization will get a 3 years label, validity of 3 years, if there are no findings. If there are minor findings, or if there are major findings which are possible, either or, then there has to be corrective action plan. Of course, organization will receive the report. It will also receive what are the findings. Then organization has to prepare a corrective action plan for each of the findings. It has to define the corrective actions and also with the timeline. However, in this period, organization can be given a temporary label, which means temporary label means what? It is only valid for a couple of months, provided there are minor findings. Yeah, if there are major findings, of course, you will have to go to the phase three, which is a follow-up audit. But in between, you don't get any temporary labels. But if there are only minor findings, Then until you go for a follow-up audit, you will also receive a temporary ENX VCS label, which will be valid for a couple of months. And before it gets expired, you have to do a follow-up audit and get the long-term label, which is for 3 years. Now, okay, of course, there is a phase three follow-up audit will happen. If there is no findings, of course, you will get a label for 36 months. And if there is a minor findings, once again the process will you know continue. Like you will get a temporary label, then you have to maybe do a follow-up audit. If it is a major finding still available, then of course you don't get a label. Then you will have to once again repeat the process after some time after fixing them. Yeah. So that said, once you get a label, normally it will be listed in the ENX portal, which means any of your customers or suppliers can go and check. So that is the way how it works. Also in case of TSACs, there will be a label ID. If you go and type that label ID, normally you can see the label, what was the scope, what are the location which were included, how long the label is valid. So all this information can be found out in the ENX portal. So that's how normally the audit carried out in the scope of VCS.
Yeah,
Yeah. So many thanks, Praveen and Ronak, for explaining about the VCS in more detail. So now the question comes, what are the benefits if someone performs this VCS audit? Then what are the benefits for having this label or certificate? So now let's discuss about some of the benefits of ENX VCS. One of the advantage is simplified compliance. So ENX VCS streamline the demonstration of the adherence to ISO SA 2144 cybersecurity standard, making compliance straightforward and stress-free. Another benefit of this audit is cost and effort reduction. So by eliminating redundant audits and various proprietary certification scheme, ENX VCS significantly reduces the cost and effort for suppliers, freeing up resources to focus more on the innovation part. One more important help from this audit to the OEM is streamlined OEM process. So ENX VCS takes the pressure of OEMs by managing the list of acceptable assurance providers. This allows OEM to streamline their processes and focus what they do best, creating world-class vehicles. And at last point, it's enhance the governance. So with ENX VCS audit, quality is assured through the well-managed pool of approval providers, delicately monitored for performances. So I think these are some of the benefits why someone opt for the VCS audit. Okay, so now let's discuss some of the questions. So I have one question on the discussion what we had. So is it really mandatory for the industry to have VCS audit for the supplier, or it's still yet not mandatory? What is the current situation in automotive industry?
Mhm. Well, I mean, when it comes to the VCS audit, currently it's not mandatory because at the end of the day, companies have to decide what they need and what they don't. So there isn't a way to mandate any of these audit schemes. It's just like also in case of ISO pass 5112. If at all it is in the as a part of the project scope where a customer is asking you to show compliance to, then of course you need to do that kind of an audit. So similarly, it also applies for ENX VCS, because see, if at all you see the other audit scheme like TSAX, even that is also not mandatory. But sometimes in the industry, it comes as a best practice, which means nowadays, especially whenever you want to make a business, then of course you need to have a TSAX label. That gives a lot of confidence for the customers when it comes to data security or information exchange and so on. So in the similar way, I think even VCS will go in a similar direction. It will become more of a best practice, which means whenever you tell your customer that okay, you have gone through the VCS audit, you have a VCS label, that gives a certain kind of a confidence to a customer saying that okay, you have a matured CSMS process in place and it's been audited, which means you have the required process templates and knowledge in place, which means you are also able to take care of their cybersecurity related projects. So I think it is more of a best practice than a mandatory thing.
I have one more question regarding VCS. So, who can actually opt for normally VCS audit, whether it would be OEM or supplier? Normally in industry, how it follows.
Mm. Well, I mean, VCS audit is applicable to all type of automotive companies, be it an OEM, tier one, software suppliers, and so on. But majorly, what has to be decided in the scope of the audit is what kind of a company they are, in the sense that are they more of a passive, are they playing more of a passive role, like they are only receiving the information, or they are also playing some kind of an active role, like they are also passing the information, like exchanging the information. Because sometimes a tier one can be both, like they might be on the receiving end from the OEM and on the passing end for their suppliers. So this is where they have to choose a role, and a company can take either or both the roles. This is possible. They can choose only one. Okay, we only interested in receiving information, or they can say maybe we want to do both, like we want to receive information from other parties and also we want to pass on. But all in all, in generic, it is applicable to all the companies, OEM or tier ones. So based on their need.
So many thanks for watching our video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And please enable the notification button for more such videos. See you next time. Thank you.